Hello all, Pastor Rus here. Thanks for joining me on Pastor Rus Says. Here's this week's sermon. As you all came into church today, I hope you did in fact get a bulletin. Human beings have mastered the art of communicating through the written word. Sometimes we do it better than others. Language is an important part of each and every one of our lives. The way we communicate with each other says a lot about who we are. We happen to be speaking this wonderful language right now called English. English is a remarkable thing. Compared to a lot of the languages of this world, English is about as close as our world comes to having a common language. At what point in ancient history, Latin was sort of the world's common language? Tell you an interesting thing. If you are flying on an airplane, and I happen to know that Dr. Stiefel will be shortly doing this, internationally, your pilot may be from the United States, your pilot might be from Italy, your pilot might be from deepest Africa. It doesn't matter where your pilot is from as they are navigating around the world. When they are speaking to the various different towers as they are landing and taking off, they're speaking English. If you think about it, that makes sense. Imagine if you had a pilot from China and they were trying to speak Mandarin to a control tower somewhere in Australia. Think about the fact that every time a new plane came in from somewhere, you'd have to haul in an interpreter to say, hey, we've got a plane coming in from South Korea. Does anyone speak Korean? We need to land the plane, and you know, we can't speak their language. So the international language of aviation is English. So if you have a pilot who is flying your plane, they are speaking English. English is a really, really, really neat language because we do certain things that other languages don't do, and we do it very well. As everyone who has ever struggled through a spelling test will tell you, English borrows words from other languages, sometimes very effectively, and sometimes not so terribly effectively. Sometimes the words get pretty mangled looking. But the great thing about English is it is perpetually in motion. One might even go so far as to say it's alive. Great movie, by the way. The really neat thing about English is we are always adding things that we didn't have previously. 100 years ago, if you said to somebody, hey, I'm hungry, it's Tuesday, you want to go get tacos? They'd look at you and say, what's a taco? Nowadays, if you say to somebody, hey, I'm hungry, it's Tuesday, let's go get a taco, they say, hey, there's a new taco place over in Lexington, let's go get some tacos. By the way, there's a new taco place over in Lexington, it's really good, you should try it. Because we borrow words from other languages. And again, not every language does that. Take, for example, this language. If you have ever come across Japanese, this is called kanji. In Japanese, these different symbols represent whole words. Your average kanji reader reads about 10,000 different kanji. Imagine if in school you had to memorize 10,000 separate pictures, each one representing a word. And you may say, well, is there rhyme or reason to this? And the answer is not really. You just have to know that the kanji for night looks like that. And so if you're reading a newspaper, that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, well, can you imagine how hard it is for Japanese-speaking people to add words to their language? What word do you have for taco? Because I know they eat tacos. Everybody eats a taco. But there's no kanji for taco. So what Japan has done over the years is they've developed two alphabets, one called katakana and one called hiragana. Both of them designed to help phonetically translate words into Japanese, but they were not sufficient, and so they've adopted a fourth alphabet they call Romanji. It is the alphabet you and I would recognize. So if you are a school child in Japan, not only are you learning to write and read, you're learning to do it in 4 different written languages. Can you imagine having to learn 4 separate written languages just to get from one day to the next? That's what happens in Japan. And all of that has to do with the fact that they started out with a non-phonetic pictographic language system called kanji. We don't have that. We instead have this really great system. It was originally invented by these folks called Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were traders, and they were traveling the ancient world and went, as we go from country to country, everybody speaks a different language. And if we want to make sure that we are making the most profit that we can make, we need to be able to keep records from all of these different languages and all of these different places. We should come up with a way of writing, a system of writing, that each letter, each symbol represents a sound. And so we can phonetically write the language down. And so they invented this great thing called an alphabet. I think it is utterly and completely hilarious that the Phoenicians who invented a phonetic alphabet, their name is not spelled phonetically. I love that fact that there's a silent H and a silent E in Phoenician. But in English, we are constantly able to use this great system that if suddenly we've invented something called the Internet, we can squish some words together and make a new one. If we need to create a new word to describe something, Wi-Fi, we can create a new word. And every so often somebody will accidentally say Wi-Fi. But, here's the thing. English can do this. And we're always coming up with new language. Every generation adds to our language, sometimes to the better, sometimes to the worse. There are words in the English language that have come to be a part of how we talk that I love. And there are words that have come to be a part of the way we talk that I loathe. I hate the word stressed. You hear people use the word stressed all the time. It was originally an engineering term. It meant when a solid thing, a metal or a concrete, was bearing too much weight and was beginning to lose its tensile strength and was in danger of falling apart. We use it for a lot of things. People will say, I am so stressed. And I always think, you're a bridge that's about to fall apart? It would be so much better if we actually said how we actually feel. If we said, I am so frustrated, I am so angry, I am so sad, I am so exhausted, I am so confused, I am so offended. But instead we say stressed, and we just hope that other people guess what we really mean. Every time somebody says to me, I'm so stressed, I think, do I need to call in a structural engineer to come in and shore you up? Maybe if you said to me, I'm so confused, I would say, hey, can we work out what you're confused about? But every generation not only adds words to our language, that those words are a little tiny spy hole into the mindset of that generation. So now we have a generation that's stressed, whatever that means. We have a generation that just can't even. It's one of my favorite new phrases. You ever heard a young person say, I just can't even? It means that they are so stressed that they can't even identify what they're stressed about. I just can't even. And I think it has to do with how much pressure and anxiety that generation feels, that they are at a stage where they just can't even. I have come across this really fascinating phrase, though. It seems to be a product of this generation as well that I love. And the phrase is, not my circus, not my monkeys. Don't know if you've come across this one. It's one of my new favorite phrases. Basically, it means if there is something going on, something dramatic happening around you, not to you, not that you're involved in, but something that somebody brings to you, or maybe you see that is so, you just can't even. You know what I mean? You can use the phrase, not my circus, not my monkeys. Now, I'll give you an example, for example. Any sentence that begins with the phrase, the Real Housewives of, I can answer with the phrase, not my circus, not my monkeys. I don't know if you've watched this television program. It is reality TV. I don't know that I believe that. But it's drama. It's drama on top of drama. It's exceptional drama. And we've become a society of people that are a little too attached to the drama of other people. We're a little too attached to the drama of celebrities. We're a little too attached to the drama of the world. I have a lot of friends who are right now going through some really, really real drama. Of course, you all know I moved up here from Cape Coral, Florida. Up until last night, we thought the eye of Hurricane Irma would perhaps pass directly over my house that I used to own down there. Now it's tracked a little westward out towards the Gulf. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. As the hurricane's over the Gulf, it gains strength. If it's not over the land, then the eye wall won't pass over. It's a mixed bag. I have a lot of friends who are still down there. They're facing very real drama. But I'll say this much. I have friends who are down there, and I've been worried about them. I've been talking to them, and I've been chatting with them, and I've been inviting them to come up to Ohio and stay at my house and trying to encourage the ones that have, for reasons that are absolutely sometimes crazy, wanting to stay. That's real drama, and, you know, I've been engaged in that. But if you watch the news channel, oh my gosh, it's like a new reality TV show. You know, we're going to take this reporter and we're going to set him on a street in Miami that's flooded. And I was watching it this morning on the Weather Channel, and here's this guy trying to do this report, and he's leaning into the wind. And he's like, well, watch this branch, I'm going to throw it in the air, and it blows away. And it didn't. That was hilarious. And I'm like, it's this buildup of this drama. And for much of the nation, it's not something that actually directly affects them. They don't know the people involved in it. But we love to watch a train wreck. I mean, that's the thing about our culture. We love to watch a train wreck. Whether it's the Real Housewives of insert your hip urban location. I don't know, the Real Housewives of New York, Texas, New Jersey, I don't know, Poconos. It's just everywhere. Or whether we're, talking about, as you walk past all of the magazines in the grocery store, and, Brad and Angelina, is their marriage going to get back together? We really probably could just say, not my circus, not my monkeys. God bless Brad and Angelina. I hope they can put their marriage back together again, but it's not my business. It's not my problem. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Why do we care about these people? Why do we care that Brad and Angelina are in a divorce situation? I mean, how do we care about them any more than we care about our third cousin's, second nephew's, next door neighbor's divorce? I mean, why is the one important and the other one isn't? You might meet the neighbor. You're never meeting Brad and Angelina. We've become fascinated with other people's problems, but specifically, we've become fascinated with the problems that celebrities will never meet because it's safe. It's fun. There's a great German word. The word is Schadenfreude. It means to take pleasure from somebody else's misery. And as a society, we've become a little addicted to Schadenfreude. We love to watch a train wreck from a distance. But we completely ignore our actual neighbors. And sometimes even we ignore the relationships we ought to be building within God's kingdom or within our own communities. I know I've spent a lot of time talking to my friends this week about the upcoming hurricane, many of whom were staying. And we've been saying to them, please, 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 don't do that. That's insane. Danger, wrong way, turn back. Come to the north. Come visit us. Come visit your families. We are aware of one individual who is yet remaining on Pine Island. Pine Island is a barrier island outside of Cape Coral. It is a mud island, which means it does not have any real beach. It's just Gulf and then island. And the island itself is 3 to 5 foot above sea level. The expected storm surge is between 10 and 15 foot. So you do the math. 5 foot above sea level, 15 foot storm surge, that's 10 foot of water crossing across the top of Pine Island. Those houses aren't going to be there by Tuesday. The governor of Florida has gone so far as to say, if you're in the Keys, we don't expect you to survive. We need to be able to say to people, you've got to go north. But as dramatic as that is, and it's been pretty dramatic, each and every one of us have people in our lives who need to go north. Every last one of us knows somebody that is standing in the wake of a storm surge. Maybe not actually in Florida, but emotionally. Maybe they're in the process of doing something destructive in their lives, destructive to themselves, destructive to other people. Maybe that there is a person in your life that you are close to. Maybe it's your actual neighbor. Maybe it's your family member. Maybe it's somebody here that you are a part of a community like this church with. See, part of the problem with the society of the 21st century is we've come to be the sort of people who look at that situation, shrug our shoulders, and go, not my circus, not my monkeys. This is not what God had in mind. If you look in the book of Ezekiel, God is saying to the prophet Ezekiel, "You mortal, I have made sentinel over the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. If I say to the wicked, O wicked ones, you shall surely die, and you do not speak to warn the wicked to turn from their ways, the wicked shall die in their iniquity, but their blood I will require by your hand." So let me break that down for you. God is saying to the prophet Ezekiel, and by extension to each and every one of us, if you see someone doing wrong, if you see someone breaking God's word, and God says to you, this is my word, and you see someone breaking God's word, and you don't say anything to them, are they going to be in peril? Yes, they will. But God says, I'm going to hold you responsible for their sin because you did not warn them. That's harsh. That's harsh. See, God then goes on to say to Ezekiel, but if you warn the wicked to turn from their ways, and even if they don't turn from their ways, the wicked will die in their iniquity, but you will have saved your life. I won't hold you responsible. That's a lot of responsibility for our neighbors. I mean, sometimes we get a text on Sunday, and they're easy. Sometimes we get a text and oh my gosh, boy, that's a hard one. And this is one of those. Because when we hear this, we think, now suddenly we have to go around telling everybody what they're doing wrong. And there's a way to do that, and there's a way not to do that. Let me tell you all what. Where I lived in South Carolina, we had this group of street preachers that used to come out and preach on the street corner. And they would plop themselves down in 5 Points, which is the section of Columbia, South Carolina, which is the college district. And they would plop themselves down on a street corner and proceed to yell through a bullhorn at everybody that they were going to hell. And I always thought to myself, well, that's a really effective evangelism model. Not. Interesting fact. If you confront somebody by yelling at them, if you confront somebody by directly contradicting their ideas in a way that is sharp, directed, and angry, there's a portion of your brain that reacts the exact same way biochemically as if someone slapped you in the face. Your mind actually reacts to it as a physical blow. And what do you do when you've been hit? You defend yourself, right? You fortify your position. So when somebody confronts you and they tell you you're doing something wrong and they do it in a way that is sharp and angry, you will believe in your position more after they have spoken to you. So if you want to convince somebody of their own opinion, yell at them. It was interesting because when I was reading up on how do we correct our neighbors, and I'm doing a search online, how do we correct our neighbors? It kept wanting to auto-fill in, how do we correct our neighbors? How do we yell at our neighbor's dog? How do we correct our neighbor's dog? Apparently a lot of people have problems with their neighbor's dog. And it was hilarious because as I was reading it, it said, if your neighbor's dog is barking, don't yell at the dog. Because if you yell at a barking dog, in the dog's brain it goes, cool, we're both barking now. You yell at a barking dog, the dog's like, awesome, we're all barking. So that's all I wanted in the first place is for us to all bark. You're doing it too now. So, look, if you want to correct your neighbor, doing so in anger, doing so sharply, doing so by yelling, it's not going to go anywhere. Standing on a street corner on a soapbox with a big bullhorn telling everybody that they're going to hell is only going to convince people that they're righter than you. Because they're reacting to that. And so when Ezekiel says go and tell, he doesn't say go and tell people that God is angry and is going to get them. He says go and tell people that they're in danger for their lives and they need to do something about it. He's saying go and tell people that they're on Pine Island. They're in a place where the house is sitting on stilts above a 5-foot elevation with a 15-foot storm surge coming. Go tell that person, get off Pine Island. And you do it in love. See, when Jesus is talking to his disciples, he helps them out. He says, look, here's what I want you to do. If a member of your church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. Take some alone time. Say, hey, let's get some coffee. I want to talk. If the member listens to you, you've regained them. You've helped them. You've saved them. But if you're not listened to, if they don't pay attention to you, take 2 or 3 people with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. Have a little say, hey, we wanted to talk to you about this. We're worried about you. And if the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. So get everybody, get the whole community involved. You realize Jesus has just invented intervention? Jesus has just invented what psychologists nowadays would do with an individual who's dealing with a substance abuse problem. First you go to them, then you go to them with a couple of friends, then you hold an intervention with all their family and everybody gets together and they talk about it together. Jesus invented that 2,000 years ago. If that person won't listen to the whole community, then let that one be as a Gentile or a tax collector. He's saying if they want to be outside the community, then you need to remove your support from that person. Guess what? They say the exact same thing in drug interventions. It's called enabling, and you're not supposed to do it. Jesus literally invented this. So there's some things, though, that Jesus said and Jesus didn't say. If you read through this, first of all, correction's done with people you have a relationship with. You can't walk up to a stranger and say, I love you, I've never met you before, and I want to help you. I mean, as much as I might want to fly out to Los Angeles and be like, hey, Brad and Angelina, I do some marriage counseling from time to time. Let's talk about your problems. First of all, I'm never getting past their bodyguards or their gates. And even if I did, I'm sure they wouldn't have anything to do with me because I'm some guy they've never met before. If I happen to have a relationship with the Real Housewives of New York, I maybe could go in and be like, look, y'all need to bring the drama way down because that would ruin their ratings. And they're not going to do that. But you have to do it in relationship. So we're supposed to be in relationship with each other, but we're also supposed to engage the world. We're supposed to develop and build relationships with our neighbors. If you see somebody doing something wrong, you don't go up to them and go, hey, you're doing something wrong. You go up to them and be like, hey, I want to be your friend. You got to build the relationship first. Once you've built the relationship with them, then when you have that conversation, it has to be out of love. You're trying to save a person. You're not trying to beat them around the head and neck with God's law. See, all that happens when you beat somebody up with God's law is they get defensive. They react. They fight back. That's not how we are. That's not how the kingdom of God works. We lovingly say to the person, how can I help you? I want to make things better for you. What can I do? Because correction's for the purpose of healing. See, Jesus wants things to be made whole that are broken. Correction's done in community. We don't do it alone. We leverage the power of a group of loving people to engage an individual to help them. We do it together. We work together for the good of the world that we live in. And people have the right to refuse the correction. They have the right to say, no, I don't want your help. But they also have the right to be no longer a part of the community. So when Jesus is saying all of this, and I will say sometimes it's good to be able to say, not my circus, but not my monkeys. Every so often some drama happens out in the world, and I'm like, boy, I'm glad that is not my circus. Not my problem. Because that is not part of what I have to deal with. But you know what? When Jesus was talking about who's our neighbor, he was pretty clear that we're supposed to make neighbors of everyone. that we're supposed to be a good neighbor to everyone. So while the events of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West is definitely not my circus, I also have to accept the fact that every person that I will ever encounter, whether I have met them ever before or not, whether they're a homeless person on the street, whether they're my next door neighbor, I have to accept that person as my neighbor and begin building a relationship with that person in love and compassion that may lead to correction. So I say to you all this week, look in your world and ask yourself, am I holding myself accountable for this? Am I holding myself accountable for the things that people in my life that I love are doing wrong? Am I holding them up to help them? Am I being uncomfortable sometimes in telling them right and wrong? Because if I'm not, then the responsibility for that wrong also is going to lie on my shoulders. We have a responsibility to each other. And it's a difficult word, but you know what? We don't do it alone. We don't go out and engage people, because when Jesus is talking further in the gospel, he goes on to say, where two or more gathered together in my name, there I am. He says, I'll go with you to do it. I'm going to go with you to confront people. I'll be there strengthening you. I will be there giving you my words. I will be there teaching you my truth. I will be there walking you through each and every one of these things. And as long as you're doing it in love with me, I'll make all things possible. So I say to you all this day, go out into the world. Look, ask, consider. What is God calling me to be responsible for? And how do I do that in a way that is loving and centered in the relationship fostered through Jesus Christ? Amen. Thank you for listening to Pastor Rus Says. We hope you subscribe on iTunes, and you can also find us at Pastor Rus Ministries on Facebook. And if you go there, you can also see our twice-a-week Bible study, preview, review, with lots of extra bonus material. We hope to see you there, and until then, God bless.